The Chinese. I like China,
boy,
man.
here
I
we
order
go.
stuff from there all the time. Yeah, so this one, dangerously close. Chinese warplanes flying near U.S. airspace. Worries, NORAD. It's a little bit of a longer article, but basically the moral of the story here is the West is getting a little bit scared that China is going to be able to kind of do what Russia has been able to do, which is project power far enough to be in the ADIZ. And it's not that big of a deal to be in the ADIZ flying around. Like I said, we do it to other countries, and Russia has done it to us. We just escort each other all over the place. But it's, in their minds, it's just a symbol of China's continued growth and expansion of their power projection ability, which, I mean, in modern times, I would argue the United States has had by far the best ability to project power anywhere in the world, mainly because of the carrier, the fleet, the multiple aircraft carriers that we have. We don't need your backyard to launch our air war from. We'll just park out here in the water, international waters if we have to, and fight. So there's some stuff in here towards the end where it talks about the importance of investing in over the horizon look type stuff, right? Because they want to be able to see. China is obviously developing hypersonic, really long range kind of stuff, so that you want to be able to see, not the bad guys, but you want to be able to see what's going on over the horizon. So there's over the horizon type sensors and really long range radars that they're working on, mainly up in the Alaska area. And I think that it says in the article there's like 4 different locations or installations they're planning on building here in the next couple of years. But playing devil's advocate or the other side of the card, like I said, I mean, we've done it to other countries. So a rational thinking person would be like, well, then we can expect other countries to do it to us. So I don't really have, I guess I'm not opposed to the Chinese doing what they're doing, unless, like, no kidding, they truly do want to come over here and fight. I don't like that. But the idea of, being able to have some aircraft carriers and being able to, to protect your, what you perceive your assets are, that I can see that. I may not totally agree with it, but I don't know, Mover, what do you think?
Just to clarify, we probably should have just spelled it out. Air Defense Identification Zone is what an ADIZ is.
Yeah,
so that's our buffer where we identify threats that are incoming in our area, our air, and we defend. Dude, this is not new.
Right.
And, the airplane part might be. And we talked about this 1 or 2 episodes ago about the Chinese, was it the H-20? Mm-hmm. And the range that it could go and what the implications of that were, and the closer they get, the longer range weapons, all that stuff. It is a threat. They've already been doing this with boats, right? Chinese fishing vessels gathering intel. Yeah. Well, balloons too. But Chinese fishing vessels, and, they go out there gathering intelligence. They're buying land around bases. I mean, this is, of the things that China is doing right now, this is probably lower in the spectrum. However, it's the most overt. So they're using a lot of covert stuff, with what they're doing. What they've been doing, but this is the most overt action, and it probably will continue to escalate. And it's them showing that, you're not the biggest kid on the block. Now, with that said, can they sustain it? That remains to be seen, because if you look at the economies, I don't know, is that something they're going to be able to continue to do? I mean,
I don't know. Yeah.
But you've got experience with this. I mean, as far as countries that, you go to their ADIZ, you intercept. I mean, and we're going to talk about that here in a minute. It's common. This is not something, it's a common thing, but I think it'll be the first time you see this, because we talked about it with NATO last week, and we're going to talk about it with the B-1 in Russia, and we talked about it. You talk about it all the time in the Pacific, but it will be the first time where they're testing our reactions at homeland.
Yeah, we used to talk about it all the time. Like, what are we going to do when China parks a carrier off the coast of San Diego?
Yeah.
Right. Because I mean, that's a huge working area for the West Coast battle groups out there. So we used to go out there all the time. I can't remember the whiskey numbers, but you know what? I mean, there will be a day when they, steam their carrier in and around that area. And I mean, in the article, it talks a little bit about, provocation, but again, I mean, it's hard to it's hard to be like, you're provoking me when like we provoke you.
Well, but it always comes down to diplomacy. The
Right.
difference is, between it being a problem and it not, is if both sides know that it's not a threat. The moment that changes, or the moment remember the incident, what was it, 10 years ago, 15 years ago now, where the P3 and the fighter ran into each other?
Dude, I think it's 20 years ago.
Was it 20 years ago?
That happened before I was in the Navy.
But they landed. Remember, they landed, and that became an international incident.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a big thing. So that's where things kind of start to get sketchy. And, China is saying, or people are saying about China, that their goal is to take Taiwan in 2025, maybe a little bit after that. So that's when you start to have to worry. And we talked about this with the drones and stuff like that. You start to have to worry when it becomes a warming conflict, when it's not just a Cold War, where it's actually, no kidding, boots on the ground for something.
Yeah. And I don't think, I'm smart. I'm not sitting here saying, oh, China just wants to peacefully steam their carriers all over the world. That's not what I'm saying. I always like to try to look at both sides and, come to some sort of logical conclusion. But Mover, on a side note, you brought up the P3. I can't remember the pilot's name. Who he ended up being kind of famous. He wrote a book. I read it a long time ago. But when I first joined the Navy, I was down here in Pensacola on flight school, and he was down here as an instructor. And there was a famous bar. Gosh, I'm getting old, man. I can't remember details. There was a famous bar down here that a lot of the aviators would go to. And I saw him get in a fist fight.
Really?
And get drug out by the cops. I sure did.
Oh, that's too funny, dude.
Yeah, that's my claim to fame. I cannot remember his name. Oh, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, sorry.
All right. Well, moving on.